Applaudissons pour le président Ousmane. S'il vous plaît, regagnez vos places.
Let me just take a few moments to recognize all of us leaders who are present here and to again welcome you to Nairobi and Kenya to this historic meeting, because I am a great believer that we are at a historic juncture in world development in which Africa is emerging as a focal point of important global discourse. This is therefore a crucial opportunity for us in Africa to define the terms and conditions under which we shall pursue African self-sufficiency in order to actualize the African right to self-determination. I see this as an underlying expectation as well as the fundamental philosophy of the Africa we want. The cardinal aspirations underpinning the Africa Union's Agenda 2063 are the output of sustained deliberation. They also require us to engage in deeper analysis through inclusive deliberation in order to clarify the path by which Africa will arrive at its place as the global economic powerhouse of the very near future. It often appears as though matters canvassed at the AU level are purely and exclusively intergovernmental. Yet nothing could be further from the truth. The economy, development, and self-sufficiency are multisectoral and interconnected concerns that must be pursued through collaboration and consultation by all stakeholders in the public as well as the private sectors at the domestic, regional, as well as continental levels. It is through robust dialogue, guided by this understanding, that we have made progress in developing and implementing a blueprint for the realization of Africa's aspirations. Recognizing that the contribution of the private sector is vital to Africa's socio-economic transformation and that its voice must define the dialogue about integration and economic reliance is a major component of our mission, not just in this meeting, but on a mission as a people and as a continent. This event, which is designed to underscore and promote the private sector's involvement in the achievement of Agenda 2063, is therefore of particular importance. Everyone who has participated in organizing this event and everyone who is taking part in these proceedings is making a significant contribution in moving the agenda forward by enhancing the role of an indispensable dimension of development, the private sector. This is why I'm delighted and grateful that you have all honored our invitation to the African Private Sector Dialogue. I welcome you all to Kenya's capital city of Nairobi, and on behalf of the people of Kenya, extend a very warm welcome to you all. Coming at a time when the Africa Union heads of state and governments have set the pace for the effective implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, this dialogue provides a crucial forum for collective reflection on matters of vital significance. I am glad for this opportunity that we shall have at this dialogue to share experiences on past endeavors, to understand regional integration, assess the current status of ongoing processes, and use the best of our collective knowledge to forge the way into the future of African prosperity. The increasingly complicated, delicate, and uncertain geopolitical environment has exerted disruptive pressures upon global trading systems. Emanating from such diverse events as Brexit in 2016, whose effects continue to reverberate throughout world economies, the World Trade Organization's Doha negotiations, that remain unconcluded, escalating protectionism, and more recently, the COVID pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and of course, the climate crisis that we all face. The shocks and stresses arising from these events have exacerbated the vulnerability of African economies and intensified poverty and suffering. The Russia-Ukraine conflict alone has disorganized food and energy supply chains which serve our continent, causing acute shortage and driving commodity prices to unprecedented levels that are unaffordable to the majority of our people. This complicated crisis must alert us to the unacceptable reality that as matters presently stand, our economies and societies are prone to the negative impacts of events taking place in lands very far away from us. This reality arises due to two primary facts that go into the heart of the Agenda 2063 aspirations generally and the ACFTA in particular. First, Africa urgently needs to work its way steadily and rapidly up from the bottom of the global value chains by unlocking the full potential of our abundant endowments of minerals, energy, natural resources, and human capital through industrialization, mining processes, and manufacturing. 60% of global arable land reserves are in Africa, and we have not begun to fully utilize. African exports are among the world's least diversified, with commodities accounting for over 60% of the total merchandise export in 45 of the 55 countries. This situation exposes us quite badly to global commodity price shocks, effectively undermining the continent's prospects for inclusive growth and development. Secondly, intra-Africa trade is remarkably low at 17% compared to 40% in Asia, 60% in the Americas, and 70% in Europe. The bulk of Africa's imports and exports relate to markets outside the continent. Although Africa has been a net importer of agricultural commodities since the year 2000, 81% of these imports come from outside Africa, while 78% of its exports are destined for the rest of the world, not Africa. We must be intentional and deliberate about rehabilitating our economy as a continent from these grave deficiencies in order to correct the obvious vulnerability that they cause. A little disruption in the supply chain causes major shocks of imports of commodities and export of the same. We have a highly promising opportunity to sustain a robust conversation about resilience, generate strong consensus regarding self-sufficiency, and design policies and strategies that will direct public and private investments towards competitive efficiencies, increasing employment, creating wealth, and making sure that we are less vulnerable as a continent. A major enabler of continental economic takeoff, requiring considerable investment, is infrastructure. Low infrastructure connectivity is a serious impediment of our ambition to realize Africa's full trade and economic growth potential. Consequently, this dialogue provides the perfect occasion to align government and private sector complementarity with the colossal demand for port, rail, road, and air transport, power and energy, as well as information communication and technology infrastructure. Here is the opportunity in more detail. With appropriate levels of connectivity, Africa's digital economy is projected at US dollars 180 billion by 2025, or 5.2% of the continent's GDP. That's just technology. And US dollars 720 billion by 2050, or 8.5% of African GDP. And here is the infrastructure demand in context. Lack of efficient transport networks increases the price of goods traded among African countries by between 30 and 40%, rendering Africa effectively uncompetitive and eliminating the opportunity for us to trade merely because of logistics. You've heard from my Minister for Trade that tea, which was supposed to take 3 weeks or less